Hey, Ken, Tony, it looks like I got to come in by phone.
Is that you, Tony?
Yeah, it looks like I can't get this computer thing because it's just weird. If I don't send it from my home base, it doesn't seem like I can come in on the Zoom. So I'll be on the phone all the time.
Okay, Tony.
Thank you.
Day after 9. Mr. Brown,
Yes.
it's after 9.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm watching them cut coconuts out of my coconut palms here in my front yard. Kind of interesting process here. Oh, well, get back to business.
Drink the milk. It's good for you.
Well, it is after 9. Okay. And you all set?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Jay Brown, president of the panel. Welcome everyone to the February 13th meeting of the Captiva Community Panel. I'll commence with the roll call. Jay Brown is here. David Mintz.
I am here, thank you.
Tony Lappy is here by phone.
Correct.
Bruce McDonald. Not here yet. John Jensen, we saw.
Yep, here, Jay.
And Brady.
She's running a little late. She'll join us when she can.
Okay.
And Suarez 1-3 disconnected.
Then we have Ken Gill, we've seen.
Yep.
Marguerite, are you here?
Good morning. Yes, I'm here.
Hi, how are you, Marguerite?
I'm good. Thank you.
Linda Laird.
I'm here.
Hi, Linda. Sandy Stillwell.
I'm here.
Hi, Sandy. And then that leaves us with Ken Suarez, our
Morning.
panel member. Hi, Ken.
Morning.
Okay, our first order of business is to approve the minutes from our prior two meetings, December 12th and January 19th. So let's take the December 12th meeting minutes. Anyone want to make a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
A second, please.
Second.
Any discussion of the minutes? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Sorry.
And the same thing with the January 9th meetings. Do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 I just make a comment, Ken, that I think these minutes are really well done. They seem to have really captured everything that was in those meetings, at least as best as I could recall. All right, moving on to the first agenda item. First off, we will have the sheriff's office update with Sergeant Rich Zeitman. Rich, are you here? I see you.
Yes.
Tell
Doing
us
good.
about the latest Captiva crime wave.
Well, I don't know if anybody heard, but there was a large teenage beach crowd on the beach the last 2 Saturdays. They were between, I would say, the Mucky Duck and the Civic Association. It was at 2 Saturdays ago, there was about 200 teenagers.
200
And last
teenagers.
Saturday, there was about 60. Yeah, they said there was a birthday party, but then gets out of hand, and through social media, next thing you know, teenagers are coming in by boat and getting dropped off by Uber, and then it gets fairly large.
Were they
So we
staying
gotten a few
overnight in
calls.
rental houses?
No,
No, no.
nope, nope. It almost seems like an early spring break type atmosphere where just teenagers are out on the beach. There were a few boats out there, so we did have some concerns of safety, but we monitored it and made sure that, you know, once it started to get out of hand, we broke it up and they all left.
Okay.
But this happened the past 2 Saturdays. So we'll keep monitoring it to see if that continues as a trend. And I don't know if people are just, like I said, sending information through social media, and hey, this is where we're going to be. But we're going to make sure we monitor it and make sure that they clean up after themselves, because they do leave litter, you know, and then make sure their safety is in check, and, you know, and not get out of hand. So, and that kind of leads me to,
Can I make a comment on
Yes.
that? 'Cause I was there. Chris did a great job of taking care of the situation. It seemed like the only real issue is we don't have the buoys anymore for safety, and the buoys out there that you can't boat into this swimming area, whatever those buoys are. And so people are zooming along on the jet skis. Chris also said he's talked to the county about it, and it's way down the priority list. But that's, when we talked, they weren't that bad, let's put it that way. And they were respectful, and I think Chris did an excellent job. But the one thing I would worry about is you had jet skis close to the beach, you had boats close to the beach going quickly past. Okay.
Was there an alcohol, Sergeant, was there an alcohol issue? Was there a lot of?
There were some of them were drinking. Again, Chris, I think, did a great job of handling it, because we had residents with alcohol and beers too, and we have people walking up and down. So I think it was all managed well. He cared about the underage drinking. So I think he did a good job of keeping it all under control. If we decide we don't want any alcohol on the beaches, then we have to be consistent. And residents and others do have alcohol on the beach.
Do we have a code regarding alcohol on the beach?
We do.
Yes, we do.
The answer is
No open containers.
no open containers on the beach. That is the rule. Yeah.
So Linda, that was this past Saturday.
Yes.
The previous Saturday, we had a few boats that were within the zone where.
Yep.
Green units out there enforcing it, and made it known that that's not acceptable. So if that happens again, I'll make sure that our Marine unit heads over there and takes care of that right away.
You guys did a great job.
Yeah. And our concerns again were like the underage drinking and the littering, and, you know, the safety of people, especially if they swim towards those boats.
Mm-hmm.
So just one other thing real quick is over the last few weeks, we had a few single vehicle car accidents, especially on the S curves and those sharp curves. And it didn't seem like speed was a factor. It seemed more like distracted driving. Either they're looking at the sunset, or they're looking at electronics or something on their phones, and go right into the bushes and hit some trees. So I'm afraid that if people don't pay attention to their driving, it's only 25 miles an hour here, that they might hit a pedestrian. So that's my biggest concern, because we have a lot of cyclists and people walking. So people have to make sure they pay attention and not get distracted while driving. You know, I just wanted to mention that, because we've had a few incidents already since I've been here where people are missing that S curve. There's a few of them, not only here on Captiva, just off island. You got the bridge, you got the S curve, and some sharp turns. So just make sure that people don't get distracted while driving.
Rich, how did all these, I mean, I'm a little confused about how all these people got here. I mean, they're not taking Uber from the mainland. And even if a couple of people came on boats, that can't be a lot. So if we're talking about large numbers of people, where were they coming and where were they parking?
So that's a
McCarthy's.
good,
Linda, I'm asking Sergeant.
Sorry.
yeah. So we drove around and we were having trouble finding ourselves where they were parking, if they were parking. And what we were asking was they're carpooling, you know, and these SUVs could carry 6, 7 people. So they're carpooling and coming out here. They're coming in by boat, and they are parking in various businesses, whether it's Royal Shell. I've noticed when we went around, we noticed that on a Saturday you won't see many people parked in that parking lot, but it was full. So there are some businesses that are open, not that they're open for business, but their parking lots are open, and they're just taking up all those little spaces. You know, if you have a private property and they might be illegally trespassing on your property and parking illegally, and that's possible too. We didn't get any phone calls of that, but that's possible.
Okay.
And if that's an issue, then, you know, we could address that as well.
Okay, thank you.
But they are coming by car, by boat, and carpooling.
Does this feel to you, Chief, that's becoming a safety issue and needs to be stopped?
So I've been dealing with this for a long time on Fort Myers Beach, especially during spring break. And typically we have it under control. We monitor it. We make sure it doesn't get out of hand. You know, if we have to make arrests, we make arrests. And usually if we're there, we'll address it and we take care of it. So we do make sure that safety is paramount when dealing with a large crowd like that. But usually it's handled, we handle it. We've got some strategies that we do, that we take care of it. And, you know, typically it doesn't go, you know, it doesn't get out of hand. I could tell you that.
Okay.
But unlike Fort Myers Beach, I mean, for example, if someone wanted to use a restroom, they're coming here on the whole day. Are they using their heads on the boats, or how are we dealing with the restroom facility issue if we have large numbers of people coming? I mean, are they going down to Hagerty Beach? I mean, what's happening?
Yeah, I've seen a few of them going to Mucky Duck, the restaurants there, or walking up down the street to another business, asking permission to use their restaurant or their restrooms.
Okay. All right. Please keep us advised of how this develops.
Yeah, and like I said, over this next month, as spring break, you know, end of February, March, early April is when the peak spring break season comes around. We'll see if they decide that Captiva is a destination for them, and I'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Is Fort Myers Beach open?
Yes, it is, and that's where most of those spring breakers go. So this is unique that they had it here and this wasn't a spring break event. It wasn't like any local schools were on spring break. This was just a Saturday party event. They said one of them had a birthday party and they said they wanted on Captiva, and that was 2 Saturdays ago. And then people enjoyed themselves there. So the following week, someone posted that they were going to go back. So once one person posts on a social media platform, it goes viral locally.
Okay.
And if people happen to see it on another day, on a Sunday or a Friday, just encourage them to call the sheriff's office non-emergency number, and we'll make sure we address it.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, are they violating any laws by doing this?
there's no law to enjoy the beach. There is laws against underage drinking and littering. So those are, there are things that we do address.
There is a county law, right, that you can't have an open container on the beach, even if you're 70 years old.
Yes, that's in addition to the underage drinking, littering, open containers. You are correct.
Okay, so if that becomes a big issue, and if we have a lot of people coming here to drink on the beach, that certainly can be addressed in that way.
Yes.
What about the music? Was there an issue with that?
Strangely enough, the people that were out there enjoying the beach that were not involved with the party, lack of a better word, said they enjoyed the music. In fact, the phone call we got at the sheriff's office the second Saturday, the comment on the computer from the dispatcher was there were a large group of teenagers and it seemed like they were having fun on the beach. So that's basically what it was. But with that said, we want to be there to make sure that we monitor it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But if loud music becomes a problem, then we'll address that too, because there is a loud noise ordinance. But
Okay, anything else, Sergeant?
No, I think that's, unless somebody else has another question.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Let's move on to Fire District update. Chief Paul. Jeff, you with us?
I am. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Jeff.
I'll just start with basically I could sentiment what Sergeant Zeltman said on the vehicle accidents. We obviously have been on those accidents on the S-curve, and it does appear it has been more distractions than anything else. Generally, when you have a single vehicle accident, it's either distraction, medical emergency, or influencers. There's not usually many other things that cause vehicles to run straight off the road in the trees. So I will sentiment what he said on that. As far as the safety issues in the crowds on the beach, as far as safety went, as far as the fire district's concerned, it did not cause any major issues for us. We did have a bunch of issues aside from, what they had to deal with, noise and drinking. So it wasn't that big of an issue for us this weekend, but he is right. There was large crowds. So two other quick points. The articles that I had mentioned the last meeting, as far as generators and the electrical explosions, both of those articles, those safety bulletins, are posted on our website. You can go to the homepage and navigate. Basically, there's a section that says articles, and you can click on that, and they're both there if you need to review those or send them to a contractor or whatever. And then lastly, Fire District has just been working with the legislators. As we all know, they're in session right now. There was a few bills that were on the onset very unfavorable for special districts, and basically that encompasses as well as the CEPD. So we've been working with legislators. We've actually got a group going up tomorrow. There's a bill being heard tomorrow, hoping for some changes to that. So keep you updated if there's anything you need to alert you guys to. But other than that, that's all I have from the fire district. Thank you again for inviting me on the cruise. It was a good time and enjoyed seeing everybody there that was able to make it. So thank you.
Good. Thanks for being there, Jeff.
Of course.
All right, next up, I guess we are at David Mintz.
No.
Daniel
Munt.
CEPD update. Daniel.
Hi, everybody. It's John Reard again today. Daniel
Hey,
Munt's
John.
feeling a little ill, so I'm taking over for him. So yesterday we had our monthly meeting. We accepted Aptum's contract, And to echo what the chief said, it's good to hear that's a lot of that verbiage that affects special district came out of our legislation that we were worried about there. We're set to select a bond counsel by the next board meeting for the bond loan, and our referendum's on May 21st. So please get out and vote yes for a beach nourishment project. Other than that, if you have any questions, I'll be willing to take them.
Yeah, I think it's important, John, that the people who are, the Captiva community understands exactly what two things, what the referendum is and what it's for, and what they're voting on, and why they should come out and why it's important. And secondly, what the timetable is for the beach renourishment that we've been discussing every month for the past, 6 months here.
Right. So the path forward, let me pull up my sheet here. We have to select a bond counsel before we go out and get a bond loan. And that's what the referendum is for, is that we have to front the payment of any project. We have grants that we are from the DEP ready. It's about $13.2 million on reimbursement. And all the grants that we get are reimbursement basis. So we have to front the cost of any project we do. I've got my, sorry, I'm a little distracted there. There we go. So our next step after contracting a bond attorney is that we put the beach nourishment to bid. We're planning on putting that out on March 1st, and that'll be a 40-day time period. And the beach nourishment bid response evaluation will happen on the 11th of April, which is 40 days. And the selection and getting the bond loan to bid will be able to get out on a special meeting, which we're going to host on May 23rd. And that will give us the ability to take a bid selection shortly after the referendum on the 21st of May.
But John, what I'm asking is, so when you're voting on May 21st on a referendum, you're asking voters to approve what?
That it's for a $25 million bond obligation for the district. And it's so we can pay for the project up front.
Okay.
We need the capital to pay for the project. And we don't have, yes, sir.
But it's important for people to understand that they're not being asked to spend necessarily $25 million of tax dollars, because you have funds already through grants that are going to offset some of that amount. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Those are the reimbursement grants that I was speaking to.
Okay, so even though the referendum says 25 million, the fact is that people won't be taxed for the 25 million. That's important for people to understand. Am I
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's important, because you don't want people going into the voting booth and saying, "Oh, we're approving $25 million, which are going to be spread among the Captiva property owners," when in fact that's going to be offset by various loans, of which you already have 13.2 million, right?
Yes, our goal is to minimize the cost of the property owners to the max extent that we can. We're waiting to hear back from the county still. We're going into meetings we have planned very soon here to get what their cost share is going to be. And we have a little bit in the treasury as well that we plan on using towards this cost as well.
So even though you're requesting people to approve $25 million, they're actually approving a lot less than $25 million, because you're going to offset the 13.2 million plus whatever you get from the county, plus whatever you have in your accounts that can be used for this purpose. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. And I just want to, I just don't want people to be afraid that they're voting for $25 million when in fact they're not voting for a tax increase of $25 million. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, just give us a sense of the timetable, please.
So once that referendum goes goes through, we'll be able to place we'll be able to award the bid, and that should be by May 23rd.
Okay, so this, the sense of when the renourishment will take place will be when?
That is highly dependent on the bid. We have 3 windows, one for fall 24, one for January of 25, and one for May of spring of 25. And they'll have the ability to choose between those 3 time periods for construction. And the date, we can't select that. That comes from the contractor's response to the bids.
Linda, you're on mute if you're talking to us.
I expect it to be one of the criteria we use in terms of selecting the contractor.
Mhm.
Okay, I think John and also Linda, I think everyone sort of hoped, based on discussions that we had with CEPD in the past, that the beach renourishment would take place prior to this hurricane season. It's evident that that's not going to happen for whatever reasons. We're assuming that they were beyond your control. But I think it's absolutely vital that the beach renourishment takes place before next hurricane season in 2025. I mean, we're hopeful that we won't have a problem this hurricane season in 2024, but I think that whatever you can do, you have to make it a priority, get the beach renourished before 2025's hurricane season.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the plan. Absolutely.
Oh, this is Tony. I got one question. Would the time windows that are available affect the monetary bids based on mobility, stuff like that?
Yes. So that's why we're trying to give them a few windows to operate through, so they can select and give us our best options. They'll submit multiple bids for 2 of the 3 timeframes.
I gotcha. Thank you.
Of course.
Linda, I think that going back to CEPD, and I said this to John, but I do think it's important that people understand through some education before May what exactly the funding mechanism is for the beach renourishment that they're voting for. You don't want to be shocked to find that people just get scared by the $25 million number.
Oh, I agree completely. I think it has to be, it's basically a cash flow issue. And I think we have to have and that's why we have the referendum. It's basically a cash flow issue. And we're talking about, my guess is at this point, somewhere max of about $5 million for additional taxes. But we have to make clear that's what's going on. Not that it is a $25 million, you're going to have to pay this now.
Right. So that there will have to be a letter or something that goes out.
And it's pretty much the indebtedness that the district is going to take. That doesn't mean that we're pretty sure that the project itself is going to cost upwards of $25 million, but we are asking pretty much to take on the indebtedness.
Right, but that's a complicated concept, and so when you see, all people are going to see is the number. They're not going to understand indebtedness or
right.
When in fact they're voting for, unless the CEPD explains it, and so that has to be done before May 21st.
I think we can come together with something that would be able to get those ideas across to the public for sure.
Thank you, John.
Of course.
Hey,
If anybody else.
Are you ready to move on to Matt DePaulis? Matt?
Hey there, everyone.
There he is.
Quick update for you today. The lake is really high. It's at 16.38 feet. It's been rising. And the Army Corps has been hinting that they're going to make a major announcement later this week, and I would assume that that's for releases starting. Currently, we are in the intermediate phase of lures in a normal to wet year, which means that we could be receiving up to 4,000 CFS when those releases start coming out at S77.
Define CFS, please.
Cubic feet per second. So that's the unit of measurement they use to deem how much water is coming out of the lake. That is well and above the ecologically beneficial range for our estuary. So that would cause damage to the salinity gradient in the estuary, harming oysters and tape grass. And it's also important to remember that CFS, or cubic feet per second, is being measured at S77, which is the lock structure up closest to the lake. And there's a lot of time for extra water to be added to the Caloosahatchee between the lake and Alva, where the S79 lock structure is. So we're experiencing a very wet El Nino year. There's a lot of basin runoff. Right now, with minimal to no releases coming off the lake, we're experiencing around 1,700 CFS at the lock. So that is all basin runoff. So the 4,000 that we would be able to receive under Lures 08, should these releases start, would be on top of the water we're already seeing coming into the estuary. So I think that this is in crunch time now. But SCCF is going to be engaged at every opportunity to hopefully minimize the damage to these potential releases.
I guess everybody's thrilled with your plan.
Great. That's what I was hoping.
No, does anybody have any questions for Matt?
Matt, is given the wet winter we're having so far, and the fact that we're in the middle of fertilization season, do you guys see a potential for a spring break or early summer red tide?
Right now, there hasn't been any red tide showing up in studies or in our surveys or surveys from FWC. There was potential, or there was background levels showing up 2 weeks ago. And there have been quite a few seabirds that have been treated with suspected brevetoxicosis, which is the poisoning that they get from red tide. So we know it's out there right now. It's blooming somewhere, but it's not blooming anywhere in around the coast. I think the potential for a red tide obviously has a lot of variables, but if we're getting long sustained releases that are being pushed pretty far out into the Gulf, the chances greatly increase of those nutrients coming from the river finding the red tide, or the bloom finding the nutrients. And we know that has the potential to greatly exacerbate a bloom.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Hey, Matt, this is John. That reservoir, what about that reservoir that was built? Didn't that open up recently? And is that supposed to help at all with releases into the river?
I can see how you'd think that with all the announcements of ribbon cuttings that have been going on, but unfortunately those were for smaller components to the treatment options of the reservoir. So the reservoirs themselves aren't done yet.
Okay.
You're referring to the EAA reservoir, which is that massive one south of the lake, and then the C43 reservoir is in the Caloosahatchee River Basin. Those are set to be done, hopefully C43 by the end of next year, and then the EAA will be operational 2030. So when those are done, if those were done today, that would be a huge boon to the Caloosahatchee, because they would have another place to send that water. They could send it south to fill up the EAA reservoir. Unfortunately, these are massive projects that take a lot of time, so we're not there yet, but progress is being made every day.
All right, thank you.
Matt, I have a couple questions. These may be outside of your area of expertise, but is there any relationship between El Nino years and hurricanes?
Normally what we see with El Nino years are actually less frequent hurricanes, but the intensity of hurricanes that we see increases.
Okay, and then the fact that we had a very cold, well, it seemed to me a very cold January, and the temperatures around in the ocean were down. Does that just get overwhelmed by the summer, so it really doesn't matter in terms of the energy within the Gulf and things like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure
talking
exactly
about
how
hurricanes.
the air temp responds with the Gulf temperatures and stretching into summer. I think that we all have experienced the colder temperatures now, but the ocean doesn't necessarily respond to air temp in the same way that we do. But I don't have a good answer for you on that one. Sorry.
Yeah, just asking. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else for Matt? Okay.
Okay, well, thanks everyone. And I'll just do a plug real quick too. We have Elizabeth Colbert, the author of The Sixth Extinction, coming to speak at the Homestead on Thursday. So if you're interested in biodiversity and anthropogenic extinction, then that's a good talk for you. But have a good one.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Okay, next up, South Seas update by Bob Walter. Do you know if Bob Walter is here?
He is not on the list, no.
Okay, I guess I need to get a note out to him to see if he plans to continue on with these South Seas updates in future meetings. So I guess we will skip over that. So let's turn now to legal discussion from David Mintz on where our legal strategy is going to be, and what we're doing now that they're trying to get a permit to get their building plans underway. So David, you want to take it from here?
Sure. Yeah, the title says County South Seas Redevelopment Permit. Permit is really premature at this point. We're nowhere near the permit stage. What really that word should say is, it should say rezoning instead of permit. And as people may be aware, very shortly after the code amendments were passed and the plan amendments were passed by the county, which exempted South Seas from the building heights and the hotel density limitations that everybody else on Captiva is governed by. South Seas, Timbers, Wheelock Street Capital, and Ronto Group, which owns the 120 acres of South Seas, which everybody knows is only a minority portion of South Seas. They made an application for 707 units. They in the past had 247 units. As everybody knows, there's 140 employee housing units and 107 hotel units. And now they're requesting 272 condominium units and 435 hotel units, which are to be located in two separate hotels, one at the north end and one at the south end. So they're moving from their previously existing 247 units to now 707 units. So we, as a community, Protect Captiva, are moving to the what I would call the legal stage of this process. And for those who want to see more detail, the panel, SCCF, and the CCA, the Captiva Civic Association, just put out a legal update, the same legal update on all three organizations' websites, which lay out exactly where we are. There are three documents attached, and people can take a look at those if you want more detail. But we are at the legal stage. And what that means is there, at this point, when I say legal stage, there could be 3, 4, 5, 6 different legal options that can be undertaken and will be undertaken at various times during this process. But the first legal matter that's underway as people know, is that the Protect Captiva Coalition filed a petition contending that the code amendments, which exempt South Seas from the height and density limitations, and also raised, by the way, the heights on the rest of Captiva from 2 habitable floors to 3 habitable floors. The contention is that violates our comprehensive plan. It violates the LEED plan. The LEED plan requires the county to enforce and maintain current code enforces the county to maintain the current or the existing development patterns and the historical development patterns on Captiva. And the code amendments, which open the door for South Seas to increase their density significantly, those are not inconsistent with the historic development pattern on Captiva, to say the least. As everybody knows, South Seas, since 1973, downzoned its property from 3,900 units to 912 units, including hotel rooms. Those 912 unit cap, that cap of 912 unit has been in effect since 1973, 50 years. Through 3 owners of South Seas, Marina, Maristar, and Blackstone, they've all understood that the cap of units on South Seas was 912. And each time they asked for an amendment to the plan to move units around within the facility, within South Seas, it was always keeping within the 912 units. For the first time now, the new owners of South Seas are seeking to exceed that cap significantly. And when the Captiva plan says you have to maintain the historical development pattern on Captiva, nothing is clearer than the 912 units as the historical development pattern. So the claim that we're making is that the code amendments, which allow for this increase, violates that historical development pattern and is unlawful. That petition was filed with the county. You have to do that as a courtesy so that the county has the opportunity to say, oh, thank you for giving us that good advice. We're going to retract all those and rescind all those code amendments that violate the plan, and we'll just go back to square one. The county didn't do that. The county basically said that we don't have standing to contest this, which our lawyer says is absolute nonsense. And so we are about to file the petition with the Department of Commerce, which is the next step of the petitioning process. And the Department of Commerce will issue a decision on that within 60 days. Just so that people remember, the Department of Commerce is the agency that said that the county was flying a false flag of resilience, but they really want increased hotel density. So that's where we go. We go to the Department of Commerce. From there, you go to an administrative law judge who will then issue a decision if along the way. So that's the petitioning process, and that's going along the state route. At the same time, South Seas has submitted a plan application for the 272 condos and the 435 hotel units. That's their rezoning application. They want to basically rezone their property away from the administrative interpretation that set the cap at 912 units, and they want it rezoned so they can do the 707, build the 707 units. So that application was filed with the county. The process is the county staff reviews that for sufficiency to make sure all the I's and all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and the application is complete with all the information they have to provide. Once that is found sufficient, then it goes to a hearing examiner who conducts a trial where she takes witness testimony and makes a decision as to whether or not to approve this rezoning application. Once the hearing officer makes that decision, it goes to the Board of County Commissioners to review and either to agree with it or in some way to amend it. The county receiving the application from South Seas sent them a letter dated January 18th, basically advising South Seas that their rezoning application was insufficient. And in that letter, it is a 9-page letter, basically explaining to the South Seas why their application is insufficient. It had to do with their properties, what's covered, what easements are there, how do you deal with parking? The impact statement on parking may not be sufficient. The buffering situation not being sufficient. There are problems with the deviations they asked for. But there are a whole list of things that they've asked the South Seas to amend their application. But the one thing that struck all of us was the county's response to South Seas statements that their 272 condo units, which they were applied for, is vested under the administrative interpretation that currently exists. Remember, the administrative interpretation guarantees no more than 912 units and sets the standards for South Seas for the last 50 years. So the South Seas is coming in and saying that their 272 units are vested under the existing administrative interpretation, which they want to jettison, which they want to eliminate and replace. But then they're saying, but we also want 435 hotel units, which are prohibited by the administrative interpretation. So they want the 272 condos that they believe are vested by the administrative interpretation, but they also want 435 hotels that would be prohibited by the administrative interpretation. So basically, they want it both ways. And the county is basically saying, how can you say you have vested units when you're basically saying it's vested under a document which you're telling us you don't want it to apply to South Seas anymore? And so that's what the county has requested South Seas to clarify. And that's one of many issues that South Seas will have to deal with before their application is sufficient. Our attorney for Protect Captiva has also submitted a letter to the county regarding the sufficiency issues, and that's on the website. People can see that too. And we explain to the county as best we can that there is a historical limitation, a cap of 912 units on South Seas, and it cannot be exceeded. And that cap was put in place in 1973, where the owners of South Seas requested the downzoning to 912 units in exchange for the ability to cluster their developments, to create pockets of development and pockets of open space, like in a planned development or PUD. And that was an exchange agreement between the county and the developer to do that, to give them that flexibility to put things where they want to put them in exchange for the 912 cap. And we've explained that to the county staff that's working on the sufficiency application. And we also raised a whole bunch of other issues that people can read, and I won't go through it here, but it's worth reading the letter from Attorney Richard Grosso to the county staff. And that letter is dated February 6th. Once the application is found sufficient, the Protect Captiva, our community, will intervene in that hearing application process, and we will probably have party status in so doing. I want people to understand that the Protect Captiva has retained an attorney. Richard Grosso is one of the foremost attorneys in land use in the state of Florida. And we've also joined with the law firm of Hahn Loser, who have some very established, esteemed attorneys in land use. And we're working in conjunction with them, representing the Protect Captiva coalition. Last week, there was a meeting of the parties who are part of the Protect Captiva coalition. And I mentioned this the other night. We had 10 lawyers in the room. We had a legal team of 10 lawyers. The Protect Captiva had about 5 lawyers there, 3 from the Losa law firm, and then Richard Grosso was there, and there was one other lawyer there. And then we had attorneys from RLR who were there, and RLR is joining with us on this. We had the attorneys from the city of Sanibel. We had attorneys from the associations of South Seas and also the timeshares of South Seas. It was a meeting that everybody working together have been, will continue to work together to figure out the best way to keep the Captiva Code and the Captiva plan in place before these amendments, which created the changes, and to keep South Seas at 912 units. It was a great meeting. We had some great legal minds there, and there's a real commitment to make this happen and to protect our barrier island. And it was a very positive and I don't know how to say it, but we feel like we have a winnable case here, and people are very confident and feeling very good about it. To fund this effort from the Protect Captiva, the legal effort, we are raising funds for for our legal fund. And as I mentioned, some of the other organizations are funding their own attorneys, even though we're working together, so that offsets some of the costs for us. But we have, and this is something that everybody's going to feel good about, we have close to 400 contributors to our legal fund in response to our request for donations. We have raised at close over, well over $300,000 already, and we expect to have close to $750,000 shortly. We're continuing to do the fundraising, and the sense we have is that people are very committed to this issue, and we probably will be able to raise even $1 million, which hopefully we won't need, but we would probably even be able to raise $1 million in legal funds if and when we need to do that, because people on Sanibel and Captiva are really committed to protecting this barrier island. So that's my report. I think we're feeling good about what we've done so far. I think we're feeling optimistic about our ability to influence the county staff and the hearing examiner that our case is right, and that to increase building heights and densities significantly on a barrier island after we've experienced this hurricane is very foolish policy. And I think as a policy matter, we feel confident we'll be able to convince, or we'll do our best to convince the county teams of that, and then finally, hopefully, the county commissioners, but we have to first convince the hearing examiner and county staff. And then we also have the state courts also going to determine whether or not the code amendments, which allow for this increased height and density, are lawful, because they're not consistent with the plan that requires the code to be consistent with the historical development patterns on Captiva and with the previous codes and plan. So that's basically in a nutshell where we are. And all I can say is our communities, Sanibel and Captiva, have been incredibly united and supportive in the effort to protect this island. Jay?
Okay, thank you, David. Any questions for David? Well,
I put everybody to sleep.
okay.
Covered it all.
Well, I think having heard the the presentation from Richard Grosso, and all of the avenues that are available to us, I really take heart that we've got a good chance of being successful, in either getting the the county decisions rolled back, or at the very least minimizing, the impact of the development on Captiva. So, I felt really good about that, and that we're not just out here, spending a lot of legal money because we're just angry, and we want to make things difficult for them and hope that they just go away, but that there's some real strategies here where we can get this overturned or at least minimized, the impact on South Seas. Okay, so next, Captiva governance options. In prior panel meetings, the panel authorized me to look at alternative forms of governance for Captiva, which included creating a special conservation district, perhaps incorporating Captiva, or annexing Sanibel with Captiva. All of these governance issues would be designed so that we would regain control over our land use policy and not be subject to the whims, the Board of County Commissioners in the future. So I don't know that this would help us with the immediate timbers problem, but you've got to believe if timbers succeeds, then you're going to have other developers, come behind wanting to do projects also. So this would be a way to gain a lot more control over what happens to our island. On making Captiva a conservation district, we did not get very far with the Southwest Florida delegation. On that, we got Anna Botana to sponsor a resolution, but it did not get a lot of support because the delegates felt that that we would have problems with this being such a precedent-setting, move. Any, community in Florida, if this were adopted for us, then theoretically could claim, they had to be a special conservation district also, and that this would become a way to fight development in ways that often would be inappropriate. So that one is not looking very promising right now. In terms of incorporation, we do not have enough population to incorporate. There probably might be ways around that. But when you think of everything that's involved in corporation, and we're, such a small town, it doesn't seem like we could efficiently provide all these city services with such a small population base. So that one seems fairly unlikely also. That leaves possible annexation with Sanibel. I met with Sanibel at their city council meeting, at their last city council meeting last week, and asked if they would be interested in putting together a study group, with us to study the various issues that might be involved in annexation, to see if we could work through what all the issues might be. And City of Sanibel approved that resolution and has authorized Dana Sousa, the county attorney or the city attorney, and other city attorneys to work with us as necessary to do a complete evaluation of whether or not it makes sense to annex with Sanibel, so that we would have our land use policy being run primarily by Sanibel, who has similar values to us about development, versus having our land use policy run by the county, which seems to be development oriented rather than preserving what we had. So I wanted to see if I could get a little discussion this morning on how much appetite panel members have for pursuing annexation. does anybody on the panel just think that this is so far-fetched that we shouldn't even be trying it, or that you know, the response will be so negative that we shouldn't be pushing forward on this?
Jay, you know, I being on Captiva for so long, you know, I fear an annexation that Captiva would lose its identity, frankly.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me. And you know, nothing against Sanibel. They're great people that run the government there, but I think you know, it would just harm my identity, frankly.
Okay, but if we could find ways to keep our identity, I'm not 100% sure how that would work, you know, Ken.
Yeah, I just see major complications. And you know, Captiva has always been a pretty tight-knit community. And then we have our sister island, and you know, I know a lot of the owners and residents on Captiva have very mixed feelings about annexation to Sanibel.
Right.
That's my 2 cents. Look, I you know, I'm just one on the panel here, but that's
Well,
how
no, no, you know, you've got your finger on the pulse of a lot of people, and you know, what you say is very valuable. And I have that concern myself, and I know many others do. So, you know, one major concern of it is loss of identity. You know, if Captiva would just become part of Sanibel and we're no longer Captiva.
Jay Kingill here.
Yeah.
The people I have surveyed concurs with what Ken said. There's a major concern about losing a cultural identification. So I think it would be, I'm not totally against pursuing it further, because I don't think Lee County's treated us very well.
Yeah.
So I would participate in it, but I think that there's a lot to overcome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know, Jay, I agree with Ken's. I think you know, Sanibel has a lot of rules. Sanibel's great, but they have their own a lot of rules that we don't have.
Right. Sanibel is much stricter than Captiva is.
Yeah, and I felt Captiva's never wanted to go that route. You know, I don't know how to, like, more freedom. We feel like we have more freedom. So,
John, the problem we're facing right now is that this existing council people seem to be very pro-growth, very pro, obviously, tax dollars. And they went around this on this last situation almost to the point of being offensive. So I think you got to look at all your options.
yeah, no, I guess we could follow through just to see what's involved. But right off the bat, you know, I'm leaning not to do it.
Right. Okay, other major issues that you would worry about besides those we've talked?
Well, I think, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sandy.
Okay, I was just going to say, I agree with everybody about the character and charm of Captiva. And that's the reason why I chose to invest on Captiva and not Sanibel. And I'm not saying anything bad, but I've had a couple of homes on Sanibel, and it's really difficult. And there have been many people that have even tried to build a house, and they've finally given up in total frustration on so many rules, and the amount of time, two to 3 years to just get permits to go, you know, to go through the planning review and all of the things they have to do. And I've purposely made a decision not to have any businesses on Sanibel for that very reason. And it's not like I don't know how to follow a rule. It's just, you just have to have somebody have to navigate through the system. And, like all Christmas lights down by a certain day, there's just all those rules. And so I don't know if we could have a totally different set of codes and ordinances for Captiva if we ever did. But at first blush, I'd say no.
Yeah.
I'll pipe in. I think that, first off, I don't know what it would be to protect an island like Sanibel from overdevelopment, and whether their rules that some of us on Captiva believe are overly restrictive, to what extent they were necessary in order to protect the island. I just don't have an ability to opine on that. And I don't know. I only know that Lee County wanted 90,000 people on, expected to develop Sanibel to have 90,000 people on it, with a 4-lane highway. So when they incorporated, that's what they sought to prevent from happening and do prevent from happening. So I don't think we need to second guess Sanibel's rules or regulations. I think what we're faced with is a choice. One choice, we may be faced with a choice, which is the possibility of incorporation or annexation, especially if the conservation district is off the table, versus continued increased development like we're experiencing on South Seas. And we just don't know the answer to that yet. We don't know what'll happen with the South Seas litigation. We may be able to stop it, and then maybe the county learns a lesson here and we don't have to worry about it anymore. Or maybe we can't stop it and it's just going to set a precedent for increased development, further development outside the South Seas. We just don't know. So I think we just can't answer that question. But in terms of our identity and our codes and our plan, from my perspective, it seems to me if there was any efforts to annex, I think we would have to, as a Captiva community, to maintain our own plan, to maintain our own code, and therefore, and to have positions on the city council that are elected by us, right? And so there would be a whole bunch of factors and conditions, any potential annexation, that we would have to make sure protects our, quote, independence on our regulations and protects our identity. I don't know if that's possible at this point, but I think that would be a precondition to any serious discussion of annexation going forward. And so I just would support Jay's efforts at this point to continue to investigate what's possible and what's not possible so that we can make a reasoned decision. I think that people have a lot of different views of what annexation would mean. And I think before we could even reasonably ask people to decide this issue, we'd have to know exactly what it would mean on a day-to-day basis with respect to our codes, enforcement plan, what our rights are, et cetera. And I think that's where Jay's heading, and I would continue to support him in that way. You should also know that we're hearing noises that from people who are very upset about what's going on in Captiva and what the county did, that are telling us to take a look at incorporation again. I find that a very difficult process. We don't necessarily have the people power to create a government for Captiva. But and we have issues about numbers of population and all that kind of stuff. But that may be something we just want to take a look at, because I know there are certain waivers you can get. And there are people in Tallahassee and people who we wouldn't normally think about who are asking us to maybe take a look at that again. So that's something else that you can do in his spare time. So anyway, that's my view about annexation, is that just saying annexation is not enough. You got to say annexation would mean we're still Captiva. We have our own plan. We have our own code. We have representation. We have a level of independence, which won't be very different than our level of independence from Lee County at this point. Right now we're ruled by Lee County, or we're part of Lee County, and the only difference is we'd be part of Sanibel, but we would still be Captiva. I don't know whether that's possible, but I would hope that Jay's investigation in this process would begin to answer some of those questions.
I'd like to make some comments. One is, I think that I'd rather be part of Sanibel than have South Seas and all the traffic going back and forth. That's just me. I understand other people may feel differently. I do think what we're talking about here with the regulations and everything would be too much for us on Captiva. If you look at Sanibel, what the Sanibel plan came out of an existential threat, they said, which is the 4-lane highway and the highway through Captiva that was going to link up all of these barrier islands. And so they made the plan that required whatever 2/3 of the island to be refuge and to create this sanctuary island. And that was their response to it. As I understand things, they're now coming up with change. I'm on SandCap Resilient Task Force. Some of the things they're trying to get in the next view is that we now have another existential threat, which is climate change, and that to protect Sanibel, that has to be one of the key themes. Those two themes, overdevelopment and climate change, are the same issues we have. So there's tons of stuff like linking the islands. Sanibel took, I believe, a unique position when they did the Sanibel plan. They brought in outside experts and tried to figure out something that would work for Sanibel. It may be with Sanibel and Captiva, if we did go forward, and if we did go forward, we could get some kind of unique plan where we basically do have our own self-governance annexed to Sanibel, where we're very similar and we're allowed to stay the same. I don't know that to be true, but I think it's very worthwhile to go forward. When I've looked at incorporation, the difficulties of incorporation are huge. And maybe there's some simple way to do it, but consider that we have 300 ex-voters, and how many positions do we need to have people participate in government? We need a planning commission, we need a city council, we need a mayor, we need a this, we need a that. And it becomes very difficult. So I think Jay's right in going forward. I don't know what the answer is going to be. Hopefully David's work is going to be very successful and we're able to establish something. But if not, I think we need a contingency plan that we can look at and decide as a group, is this what we want or is this what we don't want? That's all I have.
And, you know, another negative that hasn't come up is this would probably increase our property taxes significantly if we did this.
Yeah.
Not to mention, if you do not get a separate set of codes, you know, the building codes and the property land coverage on Sanibel is much more restricted than Captiva, which could affect some property values. But
yeah,
you know,
well, I think, Ken, the first thing you'd have to determine is whether or not you could be managed according to a Captiva plan versus a Sanibel plan.
Correct.
Well, I'm sure, you know, look, you know, what I fear, and, you know, David gave a report, but I you know, I was in the meeting, and I got to tell you, David would agree with me to say we have a lot of good options here that we're working on. And I don't want people to think that this talk about annexation or incorporation is something that, well, you know, are they throwing in the towel? Because I can tell you right now, that's not happening. And so, you know, where are our best resource used towards, and it continues to be this fight. And, you know, I just want to say another thing, you know, David has just continued to work tirelessly on this. and the hours he puts in, and everybody on the call should know that this engine cannot be driven without a conductor. And David, you know, you don't give yourself enough credit for it. I know you're a humble guy, but everybody should know that in the community, that you're driving this train, and it's phenomenal. Okay, I've been able to participate in it, and without his leadership, and I'm going to tell you, I feel much better today than I did 2 months ago, and that needs to be said to the community, because it's important that we continue to raise funds for our legal, so that we can continue to fight timber strengthening.
Right.
Yeah, I saw some of the comments that are being made. You know, some people saying I'm for annexation, it's better than what's going on now, and I'm against it, it's horrible, et cetera, et cetera.
Are you saying we're getting feedback from the audience right now, or?
Yeah, I'm seeing it on the Q&As. And I think it's really important for people to understand is that we're not deciding on annexation. That no, we're not even close to deciding that issue. All we're doing is what the panel always does, is try to think ahead and do the work that planning work, and get all the questions answered in advance before the issues even have to be considered. And I think people in the community have to understand, no one here is deciding on this issue. The only thing we're deciding on is whether we should find out how this works. In other words, if the worst thing happens, if we find out next week that the county is going to change our code again, or we're going to have increased development going forward, or we're going to turn into Marco Island, or we can't defeat the Southeast proposal, then we have to know what our options are. And then we have to know that what we can create, and what we can, in those options, what we can do to best protect Captiva, its identity, its plan, its code, et cetera. We're not deciding that now. We don't want a controversy over this. We know what happened in 2000 when there was an attempt to incorporate, and some people were for it, some people were against it. People didn't talk to each other for years after that because if they were on different sides. We are not going to let that happen. We are not going to do anything that's going to create a civil war on this island. We are just getting the information necessary so that people can have a rational discourse over what's possible and what's not. No decisions are being made, or even close to being made at this point.
Good points, Dave. That's right.
What are some other issues that you would be worried about with annexation, or do we have a pretty good list here?
I think it's safe to say that it is everybody's view, and I'm sure it's the view of people in Sanibel too, is if we can mitigate or defeat this overdevelopment plan that's coming from South Seas at this point, and we can convince the county that this was a mistake, or a state law judge or someone that this was a mistake, and it gets reversed, and we can protect the island, and we can have officials representing us on the county level that respects this community once again, then I think everybody would agree that we stick with the status quo. I think general league of view. So I think that's the path we're taking, but we want to be prepared to be well prepared if things don't go well for us, and we're facing things that we don't want to face, but we want to prepare to face them. That's all.
I agree.
Because once you change, you can't go back.
Right.
We could not declare our independence, or
We'll be the Captiva Republic, the Tarpon Republic, not the Conch Republic.
Yeah.
We'll put a bridge and not let anybody in. I don't know. Okay.
You know, once we get past all this mess with South Seas, you know, it's going to be time, and I know we've talked, not quite publicly, but we need to learn how to be more, you know, formidable in the community, whether it's through a political action committee. But we need to get to a point we can never be this vulnerable again. And we have a lot of resources, we have a lot of people, and at some point, that's going to have to be the future for us after we defeat this thing at South Seas.
And the other thing I do want to say is, you know, because we have open discussions on the panel, and so therefore it looks like we're doing things that when we're just discussing. And I think that's what's valuable about the panel. We have these kinds of discussions, but they're basically discussions. They're where we get a chance to think. We're governed by sunshine at this point. This is the only place we can really do it. And so that's important. But the other thing that's vitally important for people to understand, while we're concerned about the Sanibel rules and the Sanibel plan and how that would apply to us, even if we considered annexation, the thing we have to understand is that the city of Sanibel has been incredibly supportive of everything we've been doing in trying to maintain the protection of our barrier island. I have never seen a community, an incorporated community, ever stand up to a sister island and give it support the way that Sanibel community has done this, not just financially, but with resolutions, with letters, with speaking before the county commissioners, meeting with the county commissioners, talking to state representatives up in Tallahassee. They have been watching our backs and helping us every step along the way, because of course it's in their interest, because to get to Captiva and the cars that are come here are going to go through Sanibel, but it's also because they really care about protecting this barrier island. And no matter how we feel about annexation or not, I think we have to understand that the city council of Sanibel and the people in Sanibel have been with us every step of the way in opposing this expansion. And I just want people to understand that we could not be more grateful than we should be here, than we are here.
Well, you know, I'm hearing a lot of predisposition against annexation with Sanibel. And, you know, what I hear from you all are the same issues I have with it. You know, my thought is, you know, could we work on some of those things that we see would be disadvantages, and maybe convince ourselves that we could develop a working relationship with Sanibel that would overcome those deficiencies? Should we at least, you know, I think that's the major issue, is they have a different, you know, philosophy about governing. They're much more stricter than we are. Much harder to get, you know, a house approved and built. To me, the key issue would be, would it somehow be possible for Sanibel to accept for us to have a Captiva plan, and to Sanibel, you know, manage us according to our Captiva plan versus their Sanibel plan?
I think that would be a precondition for any.
Yeah, well, yeah, it'd be a precondition. Yeah, but should we at least see if that's possible? Because I think that's people's main objection to it. It seemed like it's at least worth my time to meet with Sanibel and see if we can come up with ways that Sanibel would manage us to our plan rather than to their plan.
Yeah, I think it behooves you to see what's legally possible, Jay. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the plan. It's our Captiva codes, it's our noise ordinances, it's our everything. It's basically saying we want to keep as much of what we have exactly the same, except that we would be part of Sanibel, which is part of Lee County, except we would have another, we would be associated with Sanibel rather than directly with Lee County. I think,
Right.
I think it behooves you to see what's legally possible and what's not. I think when you say there's a predisposition, I think that's exactly the right word. It's the pre part. We really don't know what it would look like. And I feel very hesitant to take a position because I don't really have a sense of what annexation would look like and to what extent we can protect everything we have that's important to us.
Right.
One thing you have to consider is that there are some legal issues you need to get defined before you could even start the process. What is allowed? Typically, annexation is you adopt the annexing entity's rules.
Right.
Can you come up with, is it legally feasible to come up with a unique set of rules for Captiva, let alone would Sanibel allow that to happen? There may be legal barriers that would prevent that right at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a question that we should be asking an attorney.
Because we would want to keep our Captiva Fire Department.
Yes, of course.
And would Sanibel Police Department be coming up to Captiva? You know?
Those are all issues that would, have to be determined.
Yeah. These are all issues, right? I don't have an answer to any of them, actually.
But if you could nip it in the bud, and like Ken said about finding out if it's legal, find that out first so you don't pursue it, wasting time if it's, just legally not feasible.
Well, and then as Chief Powell mentioned a couple meetings ago, the predisposition and annexation is to take over the special districts.
Yeah.
He didn't say if that was a legal requirement. We should know that because it affects, the fire district, CEPD, which probably has its own standing because it's a legislative entity. So it would be able to stand on its own. And then police protection, again, the usual route is you absorb, the annexing body absorbs everything.
Yeah.
So we would need to find out what are the legal options that we have before we even sit down with the city of Sanibel, because they should know the same thing too.
Yeah, no, I agree.
When you say before sitting down with us, I don't know what the before is. I think Jay, should get as many of these answers and how to get these answers and who to speak to get these answers as possible. And if the part of that is, if Sanibel, for example, took the position is we would never allow you to have your own plan and your own code, then there's no sense of having further discussions.
Yeah, it's a non-starter then, because
right.
So I think
they could well say, there's no way that our residents will accept us managing you to a different set of standards than what we manage them to.
Right. And if that's the case, then that may
then I think it's dead on arrival then if we hear something like that.
So I think we got to send Jay out, pack his lunch and send him on a fact finding tour. And and that's what we need to do. And we need to protect our fire district. And I see Jeff staring at us there. And
I can. I'll comment when you're done.
Anyway, yeah. So I think these are all the things that Jay can begin to find out. And to the extent that if as things develop, if we need to hire an attorney to represent our interests in this process and get those answers, that we'll do that too. It's just fact finding at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all I was going to say is obviously 4 special districts, which would include us and CEPD. We are governed by our current charter that does have our boundaries already listed in that. So I could check with our attorney and just verify if that would still be, or what issues would come of that with annexation, because you would have 2 special districts within one city, basically, because you'd annex, you'd be part of the city of Sanibel. So I'd have to find out if that's even an option or if it would be mandated that you had to merge everything together and redo those special districts. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I can look into it for you. Obviously, my vote is to keep your fire district that you already pay for.
Well, and there's library issues too. Because we have our own library, not the Sanibel Library.
And there was another question or comment in the Q&A that we'd also need to remember, would Sanibel citizens want to annex Captiva? It's not just our decision, it's theirs too.
Yeah, no, and that's very clear. I don't think, Sanibel has a feel for that, in their community. The leadership of Sanibel is not going to want to pursue this if the citizens of Sanibel are against it. So, and there's no way they're going to pursue annexation if the majority of Sanibel property owners, are not in favor of it.
Yeah, there's all kinds of issues. There's the wastewater treatment issue. We have to see how that develops and whether the county takes over FGUA, whether or not FGUA could even handle the capacity issues that South Seas is proposing. What develops with our relationship with our septics and our package plants with the Donax facility. All these issues are combined, and this is what we do as a planning group. We try to understand the complexities of these things and present it to the community. And so here we are. All right, Jay, you have your marching orders.
You think so? Well, I'm just going to propose that I have a first step of meetings with them, focus on whether or not they can manage us to a Captiva plan.
Yeah.
Because if they can't manage us to a Captiva plan, if they insist that, they got to have one set of rules that Captiva would have to adhere to, I think then it's over.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of other issues you could discuss with them about that. I mean, there are issues, and they won't have answers, but it's a question of what they would consider. How many do we get a seat on the city council? How many seats do we get on the city council?
Right.
Who elects those people? All those questions, are something that if ever we were to consider annexation, if ever, we would have some conditions that would have to be met to meet the needs of the people of Captiva. Otherwise, Captiva won't vote for it.
Right.
So we just need to understand those parameters. It's that simple. You think about it this way. We got to have the conditions necessary to win over somebody like Ken Suarez for that to happen. And so, because there are a lot of people that feel the same way he does. So if those conditions aren't going to be met, then it's not even worth discussing. We'll have to.
Right. Okay, well, I'll go forward with, a few initial steps to focus primarily on, can they manage us to our plan? Or are they going to insist that people in Captiva be managed to the same set of rules that people in Sanibel are managed to?
And I would say it's not you keep saying plan, but it's the code too. It's our
Right.
It's our ordinances. It's
right.
That make Captiva what Captiva is.
Right. Okay. Okay, well, I thank you for that discussion and the guidance I'm getting from the panel. Much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next on the agenda. Let's see, we got Captiva Drive vegetation, David Mintz.
Yeah, I just want to report that the DOT, Department of Transportation, sent out an investigation team, I think a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, to see what kind of equipment they need here to clear the shoulders along Captiva Drive of all the vegetation that's overgrown that, to make it safe for pedestrians and bicyclists. And they sent out a team, a landscaping investigation team, to advise what equipment they need, whether it be heavy equipment or not so heavy equipment. And they're going to be coming down the street, those Captiva Drive, very shortly, and basically clear all the vegetation off the shoulder as the codes require. If there's a big tree or some major vegetation on or rocks on the road that don't belong there, or on the shoulder or right off the shoulder, remember there has to be a 2 feet buffer there. They will contact the homeowners there before they actually remove a big tree, but they're going to be clearing that shoulder so that people can traverse it safely.
Okay, do we know when this time, do we have a timing estimate on this yet?
I knew it was 2 Wednesdays ago that they sent out the investigation team. He didn't want to send out heavy equipment if he didn't need it. So I'll give it a ring and give him a ring and see exactly when the cutting's going to take place.
Okay. Next up, format for upcoming panel meetings. I think this has,
Jay,
yes,
can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Following up on David, we had a discussion about all the signage is going up, and what was allowed and what's not allowed. And it struck me yesterday that there's a continual increase of people putting signs up. Landscapers, realtors, all over the place. Where are we on the policy on this?
we have a policy on it in the plans, don't we, David?
Yes, the code is really clear about this. You can have a rental sign, one rental sign, that's got to be limited in height, and you can have a for sale sign on your property. There can be none of these other signs for roofers or landscapers or anything else on a property that has a C of O.
David, who's in charge of enforcing that?
The county will enforce that and pull those signs. I know Ken Goodham has made a couple of calls to people advising them that they should remove those signs because otherwise they're going to lose them. Remove them or lose them, I guess is the slogan. And I think that shortly, I mean, I know Ken's done that informally, but I do think a call to the county. We've been a little lax about a lot of things, parking, signage, et cetera, because we were in a post-hurricane situation and we didn't want to, make it harder for people. But I think now we're well past a year and a half past the hurricane, and it's time to have the county pull those signs that don't belong there. So again, any sign other than a rental sign or a single for sale sign or signage, and it can only be 2 signs where there is actual construction going and there's no C of O yet, those can remain. But all the other signs that you're talking about, Ken, should be removed. And we can have Ken Goodham call the county and advise them within a week or 2 to just get them removed.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, we should probably put out a notice to the public first that all these signs are going to go, right?
Well, I know that the major violators of the signs have been called by Ken, and I think we can ask Ken to call again and put them on notice that we're going to call the county to do that.
Okay.
These onesie signs that are all over the place for a roofer, they're not even doing the jobs on the sites. They're just dropping signs down.
Yeah, advertise.
Yeah, and they could be removed without a problem.
Well,
But-
is there some problem with putting out a notice, as Jay suggested?
Well, you can put it on the website. I don't have a problem with that, but I don't think we want to send out, spend $500 on a mailing. I mean, we know who I mean, there's an issue of people who are not from Captiva or Sanibel. Those signs are not an issue. They should be removed. The the businesses that we're well aware of that work regularly on Sanibel and Captiva, regularly on Captiva, and their signs are there, I think Ken Goodham should call them. And I said, Ken, I'm using his last name because we got another Ken on the panel now. But I think he can call those people. We know who they are, and just ask them to remove them before they get removed. And I
Does it
think-
cost $500 for an email blast?
Well, who are you going to email blast to?
I mean, a lot of part
I
of the
would
problem we've got now is that most of the people that are putting the signs out aren't on our email list. We could send it out to them and hope that the property owners notify their contractors. And I've reached out to
would
the
have thought-
landscaping companies that if I have information for them, and usually get the pushback, well, the other guy's got signs out, why can't I? And I've said they're illegal. And I think the time now is it's time for the county to come in and sweep. I think you've asked nicely, and I don't think it's going to make a difference. Plus, a lot of the signs that you're probably unhappy with, those contractors are long gone.
I thought it was proper. I thought property owners may just not understand what the policy is too. But
So
I don't.
David, if let's say there's a house that wasn't damaged in the hurricane for some reason, and they want to put it on a new roof, you can't have, the roofer cannot put that sign, or while he's doing the work, he can do it, or he can't have it there at all.
Technically not at all if there's a C of O on the property. In other words, if I have a painter coming to paint my house, you can't really have a painting sign in front of the house. That's not what the intent is. Otherwise, we would have signs everywhere every time somebody's doing work.
Plumber, whatever, yeah, okay.
So it's basically if your house doesn't have, it's major destruction and you have a contract, or you're building a new house and you don't have a CO, certificate of occupancy, you can have your general contractor plus one other sign. You
Okay.
can't have proliferation of 20 signs, which we've seen before, right around the general contractor sign. You can't have that on Captiva, but you can have the onesies every time some particular trade comes to your house and wants to advertise that they're doing it. You just can't do that. Otherwise, we have signs everywhere. And in response to Linda, Ken, we have our regular email list, and there's no reason why we can't. The next time we do a blast, just let everybody know that these signs are going to have to be removed.
Okay.
Anything else on that topic?
No.
Okay. Next up, format of future panel meetings. Ever since the pandemic, we've been doing Zoom meetings. The advantage of Zoom meetings is easy for everybody to attend to. If you're out of town, you can still come to a panel meeting. We are also likely getting a much larger audience when we do our meetings via Zoom than what we used to get when we were doing in person, because it's easier for people to attend. So my thought right now is just to continue going with Zoom meetings. I think in a Zoom meeting or a virtual meeting, you can lose face-to-face contact that can sometimes be valuable. But I don't know, from where I sat, it just seems to me like Zoom meetings are, a better way to go. But I just want to open that for conversation and see if
I agree.
everybody's happy with continuing Zoom meetings until further notice, or if some of you would like to see us try to work our way back to in-person meetings.
Jay, I concur that we continue with the Zoom meetings.
I agree. I think everybody's gotten used to it, and I agree.
I really miss the in-person contact a lot. That may just be me. I mean, perhaps we can have hybrids, which are always difficult to hear anybody who's not in the room is the problem. But I think there's a lot to be said to, it's like, there's a lot to be said to eating with people. Things happen. There's a lot to be said for being with people and being next to them in terms of forming a team and us being together as a team, us getting to know each other better, and just being able to look at each other eye to eye. Because what happens here is we have effective meetings, and I think you run a very good meeting. We hear from the public. There are lots of things that happen in person that don't happen on Zoom. So I don't know what the answer is. Maybe we would alternate, but I think we're missing something by not showing up in person.
You know, Linda said something that just, there may be a germ of a good idea there. If we continue with Zoom for the formality of these meetings, because it seems to be effective, actually. But we could schedule and notice informal meeting, or I don't want to call it a meeting, but an informal get-together of the panel and the community, you know, a couple of times a season or whatever, and just have some refreshments at the CCA or somewhere where people can come. We can all talk to people. We can see each other. We can interact with the public, not have a particular agenda, just let people say what's on their mind, etc. And do that once or twice, you know, during the season, so that we can sort of do both things. Have that in-person.
I like that idea, David. We would have a biannual review of key issues the panel is working on.
Yeah, and just
invite the public to
interact.
The CCA or the community house.
Right. Interact with us and just get together. So we have the formal meetings once a month, but we also have a number of these updates where the community can come and we can just listen to what they have to say and talk among ourselves.
Yeah. Say like, pick two months, two of the good months to do it, March and
right.
Yeah. March
Yeah,
and
I don't think that, so the community center at the CCA, we have monthly get-togethers, and a lot of people show up that are very informal. But and so there's lots of opportunities for these informal get-togethers. I think we need something where we talk more directly about panel business, about island business, rather than just have another get-together. We have, right now, I feel I have plenty of get-togethers with island people at the CCA. Again, I mean, even being able to look at people and watch them roll their eyes as so-and-so says whatever, to me, I feel is useful. And it's easy for us all to look at our phones off camera or whenever, when we're not talking. I just feel we're more present and we're more together. Or we could do something where we would have over the summers and things like that, that 6 months we're on, 6 months we're off. I don't know. I just believe in showing up in person, that good things happen when we show up in person and we sit next to each other. And I make small talk with Ken because I'm sitting next to him. Because I don't make small talk with Ken.
Yeah. I don't know. I think these Zoom meetings have been very effective in terms of.
I agree with that.
Those serious policies that we're going through. It makes it convenient for people to be here. We have Matt DePaul is here. We have people from CEPD here.
Well, that's another thing. If we go back to in-person meetings, it makes it a lot harder for our presenters to.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not practical.
Yeah, I think, Jay, we should keep the Zoom meetings. at least, for the next 6 months, and then we can revisit it on a regular basis as you've been doing and see if people, I'm saying to keep it for the next 6 months if that's what people want to do, and then revisit it on a regular basis until such time as the center of gravity moves towards in-person meetings. I just don't think that center of gravity is there yet.
Right. Do we have any comment from the audience on this question?
The only comment was someone suggesting you could call these gatherings Captiva conversations, which I thought was very catchy.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
Hey, Jay, it's Tony.
Hi, Tony.
One thought, David emphasized how important it is before people go into a booth to talk about the erosion issues and things like that. So maybe an informal meeting. I know that Captiva Erosion has meetings that are open, to everyone, but to maybe have just like this informal meeting, Q&A, and you put a time limit on it so people can come in and know that they're only going to be there an hour or hour and a half or whatever. It might be somewhat of a hybrid, but not a formal meeting, but certainly informational for people who need to know these things. That's all.
I'm not sure I followed what you said, Tony. Say it again, please.
Well, David talked about, an informal meeting once or twice, maybe.
Oh, in a year, okay.
Yeah, and if you time it to where you're talking about some specific issue, such as the voting, even though there's not a lot of voters, but people should be aware of, of the taxation and what we're trying to do, and that you're not going to get taxed for 25 million or whatever the issues are, because sometimes those things get a little blurry, and if you're in person, sometimes it may help. I don't know, just a thought. That's all.
No, I like the idea of having regularly monthly Zoom meetings, but then maybe an in-person. It's not a regular meeting, but it's an every 6-month meeting, with the public, where we review with them key issues and things we're working on.
Yeah, that's it.
In person.
Okay. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, wastewater committee. One of the studies that Sanibel needs to complete so that we can understand the total cost of the Donax plan to process our wastewater was a consulting study on what would they do with all of the increased effluent that would be processed by taking on our wastewater. So they had the consultant come in and make a report, and his recommendation is that they will need to do a deep injection well, most likely near the Donax site, at a cost of approximately $25 million. So this is a huge number that we were never expecting, when we were putting together this Sanibel partnership plan to process our wastewater. So we've got $24 million for this. Then in a prior study, they indicated that they had to spend $20 million for new transmission equipment to pipe our wastewater to Donax. So you've got a total of about $45 million of cost that we never understood that Sanibel, would have accepting our wastewater. Then there is yet a third study to be done. Excuse me. Then there's a third study to be done, which is called the economic analysis. which is a determination of how much Captiva users should pay to access all of the fixed investment or all the investment that's been made in the Donax plant. In other words, the idea is Sanibel bore all the expense of building that plant. So if we're going to use some of that plant, shouldn't we be paying back, some of the cost of all the investment Sanibel's made? So that's the final study that needs to be completed. I don't have a timetable yet for that, when that study's going to be completed. But whenever it is completed, then we'll have a complete cost for the Donax facility. And then we can begin reviewing, does this make economic sense anymore with the Sanibel partnership, given all of the costs that are going to be associated with this that we never understood at the outset. Because we thought, go ahead.
If you had took your best guess today, which is just a guess, what do you think the total cost is going to be, let's say, without South Seas?
$100 million.
Okay, and if we have, let's say we had 1,000 homes that we were hooking up.
Yeah, well, if you did, this is without including South Seas.
No,
So
without including South Seas, and we had 1,000 homes hooking up, which is way overestimating. That's $100,000 per home.
Right.
And so if we just, all of us just put in a high performance system, last time was 75,000. I'm sure it's more now, but aren't we?
Well, I don't, high performance systems generally, last time I looked at them, were more like $35,000 or $40,000.
Okay, that's even better.
Yeah.
And so that says 350,000. I mean, so if we each one did that, and John, of course, runs our sewage treatment plant at Sunset Captiva for the rest of his life. Aren't we well ahead? And
well,
we're still not.
The problem with that is it doesn't protect us against sea level rise.
Well, I don't know about the high performance systems, but I thought they send out, so the effluent is almost drinkable.
Cleanse before it goes out.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe you have to put some mounds in it and raise it up, but that sounds like it's a more economical. And as we are Captivans, we like control over our future too, rather than the big government.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't, Linda, there's a couple of issues. One is sea level rise will allow even high performance rain fields to work properly. When the groundwater comes up almost to the surface of your rain. The other issue
so there's issues with having a system work when the groundwater is so high. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you can't drain. So what'll happen is your toilets will back up. The other problem is that many of these systems don't treat nutrients. In other words, they treat the bacteria in the system very well. But the problem that we've been dealing with is the nitrogen, the nutrients, phosphorus that get into that finally seep into the groundwater and go out to the bay and the Gulf, and therefore creates the nutrients for growth.
Right.
And even red.
Yeah, too much phosphorus and nitrogen.
So those are other issues. So I mean, there's a lot to consider here, and then you have package plants at Captiva Shores, which would be much better on a central sewer, and even yours at Captiva would be better on a central sewer.
Oh yeah, but there's also.
So it's not just septic systems; it's also these mini package plants that are there, and then for businesses like Sandy's and the restaurants, it's a nightmare. Septic systems are not a nightmare for them relative to if there was central sewer. So, I mean, there are a lot of factors that we have to consider. And then, as Jay points out, even if it's $100 million, the question is, can that be offset by state funds that are dedicated only for that purpose and cannot be used for anything else? And whether that can make that more financially available to us than as if we were financing it ourselves. So these are all the issues that we have to deal with. And even if the FGUA plan going forward is going to be viable, the South Seas is an issue, is they have to do some serious hardening and raising above the higher than it is now for that to be palatable, longstanding. So I think what Jay's basically saying, and I agree with him completely, is let's get all the studies done and then take a look at the dollars and see what makes sense on a cost benefit basis.
Yeah, I think we have to find, how many public dollars would be available. I think there's one other factor in this too, is that one of the main objections to central sewer has always been that we are removing an impediment to development on the island. And people who felt strongly about that before are going to feel even more strongly about it now. So
I can give you a little anecdote. That was a concern of Sanibel. When I went to the city council and I said to the city council, there's no way there's going to be increased development on Captiva because we have a Captiva plan and a Captiva code that limits development to 3 units per acre and we have belts and suspenders both in the plan and the code, and it's just very unlikely that that could change. And I was dead wrong.
Yeah.
I said it to the Sanibel City Council. So these are all issues that we have to consider going forward. Nothing's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my plan is to get this last study completed. And then we've got all the costs, try to look at what the different alternatives are then and see if this continues to make sense. We had strong support for this in the straw poll that we did like 3 years ago. But people were told that the average cost per property would be something like $30,000 in that straw poll.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it looks like it's going to be a lot more than that unless we can get significant funding, public funding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big difference.
Yeah. Okay, Stormwater Committee.
Stormwater Committee. Okay. So David, with working with the county, has gotten us moving along. The county's now set aside, has asked their planning people to come up with a submission to the county and for up to $225,000, if I remember. My numbers are a little rough here, to do the study. So we expect that to happen, and hopefully we'll get our engineers working to come up with a stormwater plan for us. So we have some progress. That's about it.
Linda, do you know about that storm, the drainage pipes they were putting in front of Jensen's Marina last week? The big pipes? I asked the guy putting them in and he said they're drainage pipes that were going to be run down to, I think, Andy Rossi.
No, I do not know that, John. And I want to test it.
Yeah, and it could have been, Jensen's Marina. It was right in front there, so it could have been something to do with drainage there. But yeah, they said it was drainage pipes. They were big pipes too. And there, take a look. There's a new, just to the left of, just to the north of the Bayside condos. There's a pit. There's a drainage hole there,
which has been there before. Okay. Well, I'll go look, and then I think we'll need to follow up and find out what's going on, because this is new news.
Yeah. No, they were there for a week doing all the work.
I guess I missed it.
This was the county.
Yes, I now remember. I just thought they were doing, okay, fine.
And
I
John,
can meet you there if you like.
Okay, that'd be cool.
and then do you remember, I had reported about how I had given the easement to the county next to my house by the green flash? And they put in the pipe and everything, so when we really had that king high tide, I was just anxiously awaiting to see how well it worked. And it proved to be absolutely useless.
Yeah.
That's
I
what I
think it-
thought. It was,
Yeah.
right.
It didn't do anything.
Yeah, you were still flooded out.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, it might have even, I don't even know if it did any worse. It was just such a high tide, but it didn't do anything. So now I'm actually looking at what it would cost to actually move my building up. You know, some people said I should have just torn it down after the hurricane, but I still like the cottage look, you know. So the next step would be to see if I have enough height to the house where I have room to move it up maybe 6 feet. And then I can bring in fill and then park a car in the garage. Because right now, if I put in the fill where it needs to be, you wouldn't be able to park a car in the garage, you know. So I'm looking at that option, but I wish they could do some kind of pumps or stormwater retention where they have a big tank when that just pumps it out of the street, pumps it into a temporary storage tank, and then they can pump it out later when the tide goes back down or the storm's over with. But
Sandy, your area on Captiva Drive right there, right by the big flash, right north of it, where it puddles up big time. That's one of the focus areas for the Kim Lee Horn study, the whole idea is to mitigate that from happening. There on Binder, on Wiles, you know, you get water on Wiles and on Captiva Drive and you can't get into the village. And so those are two key areas that hopefully within 6 months, we should be able to begin to have a plan to prevent that from happening going forward. So whatever you're planning to do, you know, in terms of your own costs, just think about the fact that, you know, this study, you know, may be able to alleviate some of this problem down the road. So just keep that in mind.
okay, good. So there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Right at the end of this, because it was put on the list of funding for the Board of County Commissioners to approve last week. And I met with the assistant county manager and the county manager. They knew there was a commitment made, but they hadn't done their due diligence. And they were going to contact Kim Lee Horn and just make sure everybody's on the same page and that this thing was going to go forward.
Good, thank you.
Because like when Sandy, with the king high tides, and you have a drain pipe, like let's say the end of Andy Rossi going out, and the water's over that drain pipe.
Doesn't help.
Where did, you know, how it's just pushing back.
Well, they have check valves supposedly, but it won't drain any well.
Yeah, it won't drain if the water doesn't come back, then the water going out won't be able to get out. So I don't know. Maybe it's I don't know.
Well, that's what
It needs to go someplace, right, John?
Right.
It needs to go someplace.
The Kim Lee Horn study is supposed to deal with that question, whether retention areas or whether it includes pumps.
Yeah.
You know, those are some of the solutions, but they may have other ones. But they understand that they need to find a solution to this problem. They know that.
Yeah.
Okay, iguanas, anything new, John?
The only thing I have is Alfredo still coming out 2 days a week. But he was Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And now because of traffic, it's usually a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and then possibly a day on the weekend. So I told him I'll leave it up to you, whatever works, but just give us 2 days a week. So
Do we have any feedback as to whether or not he's helping the iguana population or?
he's still getting a lot of them. You know, I see a few, but I don't think we're getting overrun by them right now. I mean, there's certain pockets that he hits. But I don't see I don't know if it's him putting a dent in it or the colder weather, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of them.
We have a lot of vigilante iguana hunters on the island now.
They're helping Alfredo.
Not me, but there are people that have purchased pellet guns, and they're going around doing the job. So Alfredo has a posse.
Yeah.
We should have a big iguana shootout and then have the person that has the most.
Fundraiser.
Right.
The great iguana hunt.
Well, thank you to him. Have we gotten reimbursement from the county for that $25,000 yet?
No.
Could you just follow up on that? And if we can't get it, then I'll make a phone call.
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
That's it for Jay, unless somebody has any questions.
Ann Brady, Development Committee.
Hi, Jay. I'm on my phone.
Before you say another word about development, you did a fabulous job on the Welcome Back cruise.
Yes.
Very well done.
Well, thank you. It was definitely a team effort. I thought we had a good turnout. I think we had about 77 people sign up. And yeah, a good time was had by all. And once again, thanks to Sandy and Tony and the Green Flash and the Monkey Duck. The food was great. And yeah, it was very positive. So hopefully we can just continue with that. And I think in terms of an informal meeting with the Captiva Community Panel and the community, that was it. We had at least half of the panel members there, if not more, and everybody was mingling. And I saw a few people that I've never seen in person, and everybody looks taller. My takeaway. So yeah, you're welcome and happy to do it. Ken's great to work with, and Ken, I guess, has the final numbers. But yeah, I think it was very positive.
Yep, terrific job. So do we have any other comments on fundraising, or we're just, I think we feel like we've got cash and we don't need to do another fundraiser. Is that where you are, Ann, or?
We don't have any plans for one. If we feel like we need to do something to raise funds for the legal fund or anything else, happy to talk with people and put together something.
Okay. How are we doing on money, Ken?
We have some.
Good.
We've sent out the letter a couple times. I wasn't planning to do it again because I think we are sufficient. And we did a pretty good job of raising money from that and the cruise. Some of the cruise allocation is not going to be in the cruise line item because some people donated and then went on the cruise. And I'm not going to try to split that out. I think overall we're in good shape, nothing extraordinary in expenses. So I think we are good for the short term.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, do any panel members have comments they'd like to make in closing the meeting here?
Well, all good.
Anything from the audience we haven't addressed, Ken?
No, we've covered all of that.
All righty. Well, I guess we are ready to adjourn.
All
Does
right.
somebody want to make a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
No second.
No second. I want to
second.
stay here longer.
Everybody second.
Thank you, Jay, Dave, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, see you next month, folks. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.